Our next panel before we break for lunch is called Smart Infrastructure. And as you can guess, it's a lot about AI, ML, IoT, and all these other things embedded within networks. So let me invite Pamela Chogo to please come up. Pamela is the General Secretary of ISOC Tanzania. You heard her conduct a panel superbly yesterday. She's going to be back on stage with us again. Thank you, Pamela. Also with us is Suhail Sharif, Board Director of Habari Node. Suhail, will you please come up? Suhail Sharif. Also with us will be Marc Cresswell, Managing Director of Camusat, Tanzania and Uganda. Marc, please come up. And last but not least, let me invite Douglas Njenga, Director of Regulatory Affairs and Special Projects at WIOCC. So Douglas, Marc, Suhail, and Pamela, will you please come up on stage and let's get the stage set up. The topic of this panel, as you can guess, is smart infrastructure. And it's all about how new technologies are being embedded in networks and infrastructure to make them more predictable, to come up with new kinds of patterns of performance, to come up with predictive insights, better decision making, and so on. So it's a combination of hardware, software, AI, networkware, and all of that. So it's a very interesting, happening topic. You heard quite a few speakers in the morning and yesterday talk about how they are using AI and ML now, and we're going to dig into that in much more detail in this network. So having said that, please put your hands together to applaud Pamela, Suhail, Marc, Douglas, and for this panel discussion. Yeah, Suhail, over to you.
I think it's still, is it still morning?
Now it's afternoon.
It's afternoon, okay, good afternoon. Sometimes in Arusha, you're not sure if it is still morning or afternoon because of the weather. I'm happy to be standing in front of you here again today. And as mentioned, my name is Pamela, the General Secretary of Internet Society Tanzania chapter. And let me say a little bit of what we are going to be discussing this afternoon with the wonderful panelists that I have. So I think you'll all agree with me that in today's world, the word smart has become popular than ever before. So it's an English word, but now we really use it many times. We talk about smart cities, smart homes, smart future. Another smart? Smart TV, smart people, smart conference. So it's all about smart, 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 smart. And I was wondering, do we have smart families? Soon, eh? Okay, I hope it will be smart, smart families. So all this is because of emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and Internet of Things and the likes. So today in the room, we have the opportunity to talk about one of the smarts, and this is smart infrastructure. In front of us, we have a group of panelists, as they were mentioned earlier, ready to share what they know and what they do around smart infrastructure. Please, let's give them a hand of applause as I take my seat. So to start our discussion, I wish to ask the following question. So what makes a telecom infrastructure smart, and how is that advantageous to the operators and the customers? And to get a good response from this, let's hear from Suhail.
Thank you very much, Pamela. Am I live? Hello? Hello? All right, thank you very much, Pamela, and thank you to the organizers for having us. Just before I answer your question, I'd like to mention that I'm a board member of Habari, and for those of you who may not know, Habari is providing the internet at this very hotel, as well as Ngorongoro and Serengeti. So a round of applause for Habari. Sorry, I had to get that in. So, Pamela, when we talk about smart, as you correctly mentioned, there's a huge pendulum of degrees of smartness. In my opinion, the very basic of smartness in infrastructure, for example, would be a generator changeover switch. In one way or another, it is a bit smart because it can decide that mains power is off and therefore I'll switch on to generator power. You go to the other extreme, and then you have a complex algorithm that figures out power just went off, compares to how much power is left in the batteries, compare that with the average power outages in that area, and then decide maybe I don't need to switch on the generator at all, let me just wait it out. And in simple example, how that can save costs for an ISP or for a telecom is that, let's say you have a power backup battery of 24 hours and 90% of your power outages are less than 12 hours. So if you just set a delay on the generator for 12 hours, you've saved 90% of your diesel costs. So that's just one example. In the case of Habari, just like in other telecoms and internet providers, we need to get extremely creative now with maximizing our return on investment on infrastructure. And the obvious ways, the objectives is A, to reduce our running costs, B is to maximize our network uptime and quality of service, and C is to maximize revenue. Now you may ask, how can SMART possibly do all of those things? It can't do everything, but it certainly can chip in. So for example, how do you reduce costs using making your network a little bit smarter? And I just gave you the first example about the generator. Other examples are, for example, if you're monitoring your generator and its consumption efficiency over time, you'll begin to be able to see a trend that this generator is going down in efficiency. That means either it needs a service or it needs a replacement, and you can quantify the savings in diesel per kilowatt hours. That you can only do with a smart infrastructure. Second area of reducing cost is eliminating pilferage. A lot of network operators, their biggest cost base is pilferage, be it diesel, be it break-ins and theft of batteries and things like that. So with a little bit of a smarter technology, you could automate that process and reduce that pilferage. How do you optimize uptime using a smart network? Smart networks are able to figure out one link is down, switch to a backup, or the power is down, switch to power backup, and more importantly, alert the operator in time so they have time to react. Yeah, so if you have a 4-hour head warning that your generator failed to start, you could probably get a team out there and avoid a critical outage. The third area is to increase revenue, and this is an important area because smartness is usually reactive, not proactive. So I'll react to a theft, I'll react to this, but how do I increase revenue? So we all know how to maximize our revenue is to optimize our infrastructure. So if we're talking about a 48-core fiber, it's making sure all 48 cores are used to the maximum capacity. If it's managing a tower site, it's trying to make sure that I have 10 tenants on the same tower because it has that capabilities. But with sharing infrastructure comes a lot of issues. There's trust, there's management, there's measurement of expenses. Once again, smart infrastructure can play a pivotal role. For example, 10 people accessing the same tower site. You don't want operator A technician meddling with operator B rack or equipment. Or you don't want to manage access to make sure they're always escorted by one of your staff. So simple things like access control with audit trails backed up with CCTV coverage just makes the site a little bit automated. You don't have to be there at every time. The other thing is smart metering. Power is one of the biggest cost centers of a tower site, and you can install smart meters, for example. So every tenant has their own meters. You don't have to have check meters, take a picture, put it in Excel, figure out what's the kilowatt hours. Smart meter can do all that for you and give real-time data to all the tenants, so you eliminate all controversies. Not only that, you could also bill them in dual tariffs. when did you use power on the mains and when did you use power on the generator? So, Pamela, long answers to a very short question, but as we move along into deeper, more meaningful connectivity, the costs of infrastructure have to go down, and one of the more obvious ways to do it is to make them a little bit more smart. The advantages of doing that, obviously you bring down the costs for the operators, so it becomes more profitable. They're more incentivized to keep investing and go further and further. And this only has benefits for the end user in terms of lower costs, higher quality of service, and wider coverage area. Thanks, Pamela.
Wow, that's amazing, yeah? I have a small follow-up question from the response that you gave. You talked about reducing costs a lot, but I would wish to hear, is setting up a smart infrastructure expensive? Because you talk, having it there reduces costs, but what about the initial setup? Would it be expensive, and maybe there's a contradiction between this side is reducing cost and this side is expensive to set up? If you can tell us a little bit about that.
Definitely. So the saying goes, to make money, you need to spend money. Yeah. So making a network smart definitely is some investment, but there's various levels of smartness. For example, putting AI in a base station may not be as appropriate today. You also run the risk of the base station becoming over smart. For example, we installed for a customer, and the unit kept telling us there was no power, but there was power. Turns out they considered no power is under 200 volts, whereas our equipment worked perfectly fine up to 185 volts. So there is a cost. You have to weigh the cost and quantify the savings or the increased revenue, and then the numbers will just tell. As long as the decision is based on numbers, cost and benefit, the benefits will far outweigh the costs, but there will always be some costs.
So it means you have to be smart to set up the smart infrastructure. With that, we also have Marc, who has some experience in creating a smart infrastructure. Please tell us something about what you've done in Tanzania and Uganda.
Hi, thank you, Pamela, and good afternoon to everybody. For me to, it's a good question. I would like to just give a background of Camusat, and then you would understand my answer will be more applicable. So Camusat is more than 40 years old. We started off initially as a tower design company, but we've evolved and we've gone into a full turnkey structural developing company. So we offer 5 official business lines plus another 2 additionals that we've been added this year. We got footprints in South America, Europe, Asia, and Paris, it's our head office, and mainly in Africa. So what we've done, we've established a support group that is in Romania. And the support group is now all the experts in the different business lines. That is from BTS builds, the power, equipment, fiber, management services. So what we do is, when we deal with the clients, we will definitely get hold of our support group, get what the client's requirements are. We send the support group, all the experts sit there. With the use of AI, they look in what is the best, based on the data being supplied, what the client has given as what is their wants and what they want us to do for them. We will look and see how we can do it at the most efficient way, most cost effective. Then we also probably look at offering them a second or third solution, because Camusat is known for providing solutions to problems. And we will show why we feel our solution could be better than what they're proposing. We keep bringing better results and saving more, and also making sure that the stakeholders are more happier in what they're getting. So we've done it in the past in Uganda and in Tanzania. The client has come with some solutions, some requests, and we have gone to them with solutions. For example, in Uganda, MTN, they wanted a FTTS project to be run out. So Camusat came up with a project with how we can do a solution that will cater for what they need at a reduced rate that they were looking at. And then also giving them a additional scope of work that they never had, and that's they have an inventory of the poles. So we created an AI application where they have access with us, and as the poles have been planted, we have a barcode scan on the pole, and it's been digitally scanned in. You can see the dates. It's got all the details on when it's been taken to the site, when it was planted, photos of the actual site of each pole, and they can globally look at it on the satellite where the poles are, and they can count exactly which poles are there. Any issues on the site, they can immediately pinpoint where the problem is, and they send the team out straight away to that. So you're saving a lot of costs of going to test the whole route of the backbone. That is the one solution. Solution in Tanzania, working with a new tower called Moderator. Same thing. We came into the business. We looked into what they have on the sites, and we proposed a lot of new solutions that we feel it will be better. Collected the data, sent it back to our experts. Our experts, with their experts, had discussions. We came up with what is going to be the best for them to improve the power and reduce the downtime. And we have drastically reduced the downtime. And the BOT's been really good since we've applied a lot of the solutions that Camusat had applied. That is all about AI's data being given, but carefully looked into it and seen what is the best. Each country differs. Each country has its own challenges. So when we come to tower builds, which is now a big demand in Tanzania, as we all know, and we're connecting a lot of towers, but yet we're also giving solutions on how the towers should be constructed, what is the best way of doing it, and we help with the design to get the best out of the tower that they want, and looking at wind speed, weight, etc.
Thank you for sharing the wonderful experience, and I think most of us have grasped something. And before I said you have to be smart to create a smart infrastructure, and I think what you're doing is helping people in developing that smart infrastructure. So you are that first smart part of the smart infrastructure. To the next panelists, we have had wonderful testimonies of what is happening. But as we all know, when we talk of being smart, it also comes with risks and challenges. So if you can share with us, what are some of the risks that emerging technologies open up, and how can regulators and government play a role?
Tonight it's great to be here, Pamela. And just to put context to AI and machine learning, on the one hand, the engine behind AI is tired. So you've got the core compute and the edge compute, and the numbers, the numbers around that. On the continent, we have on average, the data center experts in the room can correct me, but we have about 100 or something data centers, compared to the US that has over 5,000 data centers. So that gives you an idea on where the edge compute will be and where the core compute is. Now, the difference in between, and unless the physics of the internet changes, 98% of the internet as we know it today goes through cable. So you need a redundant, resilient network to be able to get the output you're looking for from AI. I mean, there's the core compute that my colleagues have talked, the edge compute that my colleagues have talked about. But if you're looking at the large scale today implementation that what we have with Azure or the likes of automated cars and all that, you need a very resilient network to get the output that you're looking for. That comes with a risk. I mean, the circumference of the Earth at the moment is what, 40,000 kilometers? For you to connect the US to Africa, you need 4,000 kilometers of cables, 40,000 kilometers of cable. I mean, the likes of ourselves, we've tried to do that. We've tried to connect at least 3 continents with the 2 Africa cable, which is now 45,000 kilometers. But it takes a fortune. It costed over $1 billion. Projects like those are hard to come by. So for the African continent, and for those who don't actually have 2 Africa capacity, obviously you need to talk to us because it's going to run out soon. But for the African continent, if we're going to enable the machine learning and AI infrastructure growth, we need to concentrate on a robust network sharing infrastructure. And the message is open access. In terms of the risks that you would look at, Tesla a while ago had a huge accident because of the integration between the Amazon platform and the automated cars. We've had incidents on the continent where the banking systems rely purely on machine learning and AI, and your banking records end up being corrupted. So there's a lot of risks, yes. There are opportunities as well. In terms of the connectivity side, we're doing our part. We have a core-to-edge strategy to help reduce, I mean, latency has come up a lot in the panels over the last few days. We have a core-to-edge strategy. We've put out over 38 edge data centers on the continent. We've built over 75,000 kilometers of terrestrial cable. And we continue to build out on the sub-sea level, because if you can resolve the latency issue, which we are doing, and the colleagues from the tower sector are also trying to do their part, then perhaps we can bridge the gap between the risks and the rewards. From the regulatory point, I mean, regulators will always fall behind when it comes to keeping up with the regulations and licensing. There are lots of opportunities for regulators to support the industry. You know, in other countries, I was speaking recently in Singapore, and they have regulatory sandboxes where they bring together the telco experts and they bring together the engineers who are putting together some of these AI modules, and they test it. And in the process, through those sandboxes, they're able to learn what this technology is all about without having to breach IP. And in the process, they also grow and enable the growth of the sector. There also needs to be a lot of awareness in terms of how can we solve these problems? How can we grow the networks without, again, policing or limiting the capacity of the machine learning and AI? So there's a lot of capacity that we still have on the continent. There's a gentleman who spoke in the previous panel. I mean, it shouldn't be that a football match in Arusha is hosted in Europe. What can we do to change that? We need to resolve the regulatory frameworks and create more opportunities for us to test some of these technologies. But in the process, make sure that it is safe and we can keep up with the risks that come with it. And he mentioned, rightfully so, you could have a perfect AI, but it's perfect for what it's been programmed for. You know, if you have your business relying entirely on an AI module, it's only as good as what it's learned. And if it's not agile enough to accommodate your business, then you have a problem. So there's lots of opportunities, and as we grow as a continent, we need to work together and collaborate. The future is actually open access and sharing of infrastructure so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Tanzania should not have to look at AI as a strange module. There's lots of lessons to be learned from the continent. We've been partnering with the government in Tanzania and all our local partners to do that, but there's still a lot more we could do. A few of us have bundled together. I'm a board member and founder of an organization called ASEF, which is the Africa Subsea Cable Ecosystem Forum, where we can have some of these conversations and even present opportunities to regulators to learn about it. Yeah.
Thank you for your contribution on this. And from the panel that I moderated yesterday, there's been a lot of talk about sharing of infrastructure. And this brings me to my next question, that either Suhail or Marc can help us out. does this relate to some of the cultural challenges that we have in organizations? And what cultural challenges does an organization need to have in place, cultural changes in place in order to have, to harness emerging technologies such as AI and machine learning? So we are talking about sharing, so that could also be one of the cultural challenges. So what should we change in terms of the cultures, the working culture, so that we can embrace these technologies? Any of you can respond.
Thank you, Pamela. So with regards to cultural undertones to sharing, I think Africa is a perfect example. A lot of what we do is always shared. You have a wedding and everybody has to come, and you have a graduation and everybody's there. You have a sorrow and everybody chips in. So I'm not worried about the sharing component. With regards to AI and the culture to allow AI, that's where there's going to be some work, because AI is very, very new. Most of us still don't comprehend, primarily me, the full context of AI. And what this means for organizations is that there may be a lot of resistance to it. If there is just resistance, because the boss knows best, he has 50 years of experience and then that's going to be dangerous for the organization, because the leadership, the culture of the organization will get outdated quite fast. What we have done at Habari and at the company that I run also is just say, let's be open and let's try it out. Yeah, and in that we're going to maybe make some mistakes, we're going to maybe waste a lot of time doing a lot of research, but the culture of openness and sandboxing, my colleague mentioned that, is the best way to give it a try, because like every new concept, there's the good and there's the very bad. And if you just run with it without any control or thought, you'll probably take advantage of the very bad before you get to the good. So my kind of advice, if it were, to organization is just be open, give it a try, and pick what is relevant for you. Yeah, if the good thing about AI is that it's continuously learning. So the smart piece of infrastructure I talked about earlier was referring to European smartness, which meant 200 volts was no power, and then I had to teach it 180 volts in Africa means there is power. And so pick what is appropriate and cost effective.
You wish to, okay.
So I'll add maybe one or 2 points. The big thing is a lot of people are afraid of AI. It's not a replacement of what your processes are and what you're using. It's just you've got to make sure that your AI integrates with what your present systems are in place to make sure it's compatible. But the data is going to help you. I think the best thing is transparency is really key. Stakeholders got to really know exactly what is the purpose, why it's been brought in, why is necessary, make the improvement. It's evolving. I mean, we are moving on and things are changing. And old systems are getting outdated. So the AI is going to just help things to be defined and quicker and put you in a better position to make quicker decisions and more cost effectively. I think also the big concern is people feeling that they're going to be replaced if AI comes in. And that is not correct. If the stakeholders and the leaders of the companies and they empower their staff and help them to upgrade their skills as well, based on what they're trying to do, the change they're trying to make by bringing the AI to bring the systems into a more applicable and a more updated version. I think there should not be fear. There should be more of a collaboration of let's do it, let's try it, monitor it and maintain and see how it goes. Transparency is very important, I think.
I think I take a more cautious approach. I think based on some of the largest disasters that we've seen on the continent, especially on data breaches, the Capital One incident in 2019, 10 million people's records in one day were violated. So there's something to be said about being more deliberate about how we integrate It's like a shoe. You don't just pick the first shoe. You find the one that actually fits you, and then you test it, and you buy it based on what is your size. Regardless of whether or not it's more expensive or cheaper, you pick your right size. As an African continent, we need to change our culture to not just adopt things. We need to take a step back, think long term. How does it benefit the organization? How best can I localize it before you can jump onto it?
So thank you. We still have around 5 minutes, and if I can welcome the audience, if we have a question or a contribution. And while I wait for him to get a mic, we were talking about cultural change. And one of the things that Douglas has mentioned was regulators will always fall behind. I think that is also one of the cultures that need to change.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, everyone in the panel for the very insightful discussions we've had. I just want to comment on the smartness of infrastructure. Coming from Helios Towers, I'll just cite a few challenges that we have. One of them is power consumption. So I don't know how and what the direction is in ensuring that sites optimize power consumption over time, because when there is peak traffic, consumption will go high. When everybody is asleep, I mean, consumption should go low to the lowest possible. Now, I think there is a need to have tools that can adjust that power consumption during those hours, and therefore minimize costs of running generators or at a full capacity when the full capacity is not required, or electricity grid when that consumption is also not required. Next is on theft of assets on site. I understand that you've mentioned repeatedly on tools that can actually tell you this is happening. But I think there is a need for action-oriented smart tools, like the ones that would stop theft, okay? Act like security on site. I don't know how you can help us explain and get to know if there are those tools available and how we can get them. Thank you.
Anyone can respond to that?
Thank you very much for the question. We definitely need to talk after the panel. But there are tools, and tools need to be coupled with operational procedures. So, so let me talk about the power consumption. If you had kilowatt-hour consumption rates over time, eventually, either by manual analysis or AI, you'll begin to be able to see a trend. And depending on whether you're using solar power, mains power, generator power, the trend of consumption will combine the consumption of traffic on your base station with availability of power. Based on that, then you can put in an algorithm of when to switch on the generator. When a generator actually doesn't make sense, you're better off with solar. And when you need to do a hybrid of both. So it all comes down to, first, what gets monitored gets done. So if you have like 3 months of monitoring data, automatically decisions become far easier to make and far easier to justify to your CFO, because at the end of the day, you need more money to get more smart. Yeah, that's number one. In terms of theft, it's a very good thing about prevention and all. I'll tell you a small story just because we have a minute. I had a friend, he had fantastic CCTV in his shop, and then he got robbed. And I'm like, well, you had CCTV? He's like, yeah. And it told me something very, very important. It's like, what's that? That I got robbed. Because everybody was wearing a mask, and there was a perfect heist, and the CCTV was absolutely useless for him. But if you can combine some degree of security automation, for example, a thief will come, he'll scout a site, he'll see that the perimeter is galvanized steel, he'll come with a cutter or a grinder or whatever, he'll break in and he thinks he's through. And then 1 meter on, there's an invisible beam, which he didn't know about. When that triggers, your security company can get an alert, and instead of having an armed guard or a guard at each and every site, which is very expensive, you can instead have an SLA with your guard company that they need to be able to reach the site within 30 minutes. That reduces your cost tremendously, and people can react while the process is ongoing, so preventing theft. Same way with tenants' assets being stolen, you can RFID tag all of them. And as soon as they're not in coverage, you get an alert. Now, it's already out, but you have time to react on that.
Maybe very quickly we can, and then we can respond and we continue maybe the conversation later. Yeah.
So I think I'll make it quick. For us, AI, and I would probably encourage everyone, AI is not the solution, it's an enabler, right? Like for us, we're putting over $1 billion of subsea cable in the ocean where you know it has the risks of trawling and vessel destruction and all that. We don't necessarily rely on AI as the only opportunity. It helps to know the traffic patterns, to know, you know, like he has mentioned, if that site is trafficked by a lot of people, then you know to fortify your security system. So I think I would use it more as an enabling strategy for your existing security framework. And that way then you're able to also hedge on the costs for securing the site. I mean, some of the fibers we lay in very dangerous territories like in Nigeria, and we realized after a long time, if you actually involve the community in laying the cables, they are stolen they steal them much more less because they know what it is and they were paid to do the work. So there's some of the strategies you can deploy as well outside automation to secure your sites. Yeah.
Sorry, quickly on the security. We've been trying something new in Uganda and Tanzania, and it seems to be working. So what we've done, even with the alarm systems, the camera systems, we categorize them based on the frequency of the thefts. But it's not your solution. Your solution is making it difficult for the thieves to be able to remove the assets. So what do? We started hardening the sites, hardening the equipment, hardening the cables. So our response team and your planning of your response team has to be sufficient. So within the 30-minute period, while they're still trying to get through the hardening, we catch them. So the cameras are there to capture the information, the photos. The alarm goes off, and also we've embarked on neighborhoods. And there's an incentive monthly. If there's no incidents, the neighbors get something. There's a reward. So you've got neighborhoods, they blow the whistle, or they make a quick phone call. There's people at the site, or they'll say, here's a vehicle, registration done so and so. Do the knock, and we know if it is ours or not. So you have to, it evolves the whole time. You got to keep on moving and changing your security. It's never a quick one. Thank you.
So thank you so much. This brings us to the end of our panel discussion. Please, a round of applause to my panelists.
Thanks so much, Pamela. A round of applause for Pamela, Suhail, Marc, and Douglas. Will you please come forward for a group photograph?
I didn't finish.
Oh, yeah.
A round of applause for me.
Of course, I said that. For Pamela and the whole panel. Pamela, Suhail, Marc, and Douglas. So thanks, Pamela. This is her second panel that she's moderated absolutely brilliantly, and I'm glad the discussion sparked so much questions from the audience as well. That was very nice. Okay, great.